Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Hopefully you've listened to us before. If not, this is the Remarkable Coach podcast. I'm your host, Micheal Pacheco. And today with me, I have Chris Herndon. Chris, am I pronouncing your last name right? I forgot to ask before.
You nailed it, man. You nailed it. That's good.
I apologize. I forgot to ask before I hit record. Chris here, he is a co-founder and personal coach at Lucidly, a coaching service helping small and medium-sized businesses build engaged and thriving teams. He's the Future Ready HR podcast host, where he brings stories, big ideas, and practical insights to those in PeopleOps roles. He specializes in helping clients create the work-life balance and fulfillment that brings them joy. Chris, welcome to the Remarkable Coach.
Thank you, man. Yeah, appreciate it, Michael. Yeah, got to be here.
Glad to have you here. So I love to typically start out this podcast by just inviting our guests to tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into coaching.
So I joke and say that I've been a coach my entire life. And I even, I said that to you a little bit earlier, but it's actually quite real for me. And what I mean by that is that my dad was my coach for every sport that I ever played growing up: baseball, basketball, soccer, really just life. I really admired him, looked up to him, and he had a way of empowering my peers, those around me, my friends that were on the teams. And if you're around somebody enough that's doing that and speaking that language, then you sort of adopt it in your own, right? It's like through osmosis. What's that saying that we don't do what our parents say, we do what they do?
Yeah.
And so I actually don't know another way to relate to people other than like helping them become a better version of themselves in whatever capacity is really necessary for that person and what they want. So, I was the kid growing up that, friends would just come and talk to me about, they'd want whatever, relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, issues that they were dealing with. Like, what should I do, Chris? And I never would really tell them what to do. I just ask them questions to understand. And that sort of questioning, that curiosity that I had, that even showed up in, dating. When people just I got so much practice because I was like just an avid dater, and I look because I love learning about people. And so it's just like, even something like that I didn't realize at the time, was preparing me for kind of a career in coaching.
Nice.
Even when I was a bartender, same thing, right? Somebody comes in and they're there to have an experience, right? And so my level of engagement and attention focus on them and asking them questions and engaging in conversations, again, just preparing me for this kind of life. And from personal trainer to working in corporate America, where I would literally get trapped like in the break room, and people want to talk to me about something related to fitness, like something related to mindset, and all of a sudden that starts to bleed into other areas of their life where clearly this person is just a shell of themselves at work, right? They want to escape, but they don't really know how. And eventually I learned about executive coaching as a career path. And when I was getting my MBA at Portland State, I know you're from Oregon, so you know where that is.
Sure do.
And I was like, yeah, I'll be a coach when my hair turns gray, because the coaches that I was meeting at the time, they were, senior professionals. We're talking potential retirees. Like, this is the end of their career, riding off into the sunset, and they want to give back and help others. So I just figured I needed to be older and wiser. So after I graduated, I ended up becoming a consultant for about a year, specializing in change management, really just helping organizations and people in organizations move through change, new process, new system, new anything, strategy, you name it. And I also enrolled in a coach certification program at that time, and quickly realized, like, I don't want to help this manager. Like, I don't want to create a training program for this manager to roll this out to their team, because I want to help that manager become a better version of themselves, because clearly nobody trusts them. They're toxic. And I'm here like creating this program that's not going to be delivered appropriately because of this other stuff. So that's where, fast forward a year, and I got laid off actually from that consulting job, and launched my coaching practice. And I've been coaching ever since. So there's more like what's happened since then. Happy to share that, but that's kind of the origin story of how I became a coach.
Right on. And it sounds like you work with teams, and you have a podcast that's kind of focused on HR. How did you get into that space specifically?
Yeah, well, I love people,
Yeah.
and human resources, people operations. I mean, a huge part of the role is to create a thriving um, space, culture, community within an organization, thriving teams, develop leaders. And so they're kind of they're like the tip of the spear when it comes to that. And oftentimes they're the last, the last to be hired on an executive team. They're typically under-resourced, underrepresented, under-respected. And I want to help them become peers in the executive suite. Because, I mean, I think especially as we kind of, over the last couple of years and transitioning in a kind of a post-pandemic world, people are catching on to, they actually have more power than like historically. And I think it's just a perception, but individuals within companies, employees, if you will, staff, have more power than they've ever had in probably the history of business. Meaning, I mean, people are asking for more money, they're asking for more flexibility, they're asking for more PTO, right? Like employers are having to like catch up to the demands, ask, wants, needs of their employees. And so I want to help people design a life, right? Like I've always sort of been in this position where I help people design that work life that really brings them more joy, fulfillment, and energy. And so if employers can, and HR teams and PeopleOps teams can support that of the employee, man, we've just transformed the landscape of business. And I'm all about that.
Right on, right on. So you mentioned like you like to help people become peers in the executive suite. So tell us more about your ideal client. Is it specifically managers in the C-suite, or do you work with, you work with teams as well?
Yeah, so back up. My role has shifted recently here within Lucidly, but I'm one of the co-founders. We have a team of 9. So we have some coaches, we have some consultants, and I've kind of transitioned into more of this growth marketing type of role.
Yep.
And I'm out there trying to, again, drum up opportunities to, again, help HR leaders, provide value to them, and create the door opening. It's because I don't know yet exactly where I can best help somebody. It really just depends. And the beauty of having a team at Lucidly is that we offer executive coaching if that's where it's needed the most. Maybe that executive team is lacking alignment. Maybe they've grown so fast and they've been wearing so many hats that now they need to hire people. And so they lack job clarity. Who's doing what, when, and how, right? And then how are we staying accountable to what we're saying that we're going to do? So maybe that's where it needs to start. Or maybe it's a company that's has a little bit longer history and they have a little bit more structure, but they're struggling because, well, they just gone 100% remote. So how do we keep our remote employee workforce engaged? I mean, that is a question of the ages. That's a challenge. And I come from the philosophy of it's not 100% your responsibility, employer, to figure that out. It's also but it is your responsibility to empower people to be engaged and choose and take responsibility for engagement. And so I actually come at it from the employee side. And like, how can I coach this individual to take responsibility for the level of engagement in their own life? And then how can we provide the support to the organization so they can do that effectively? And so we offer, core business skills academies or increasing your personal capacity and energy academies. It just really depends on what that organization needs.
Okay. So it sounds like you guys, excuse me, sounds like you guys have kind of a holistic approach when you're working with a given organization. You'll come at it from the employee side, but also from the management side.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's what we found is actually it works. So we can start with the employees, right? But what ends up happening is when you have like all of a sudden employees they're coaching up, they're managing up, they're giving that feedback, their ideas, they're expressing their wants, the need, demands, challenges that they're facing. Now managers have to step up. And so now they need coaching, right? And then all of a sudden, if they started within that coaching, now they're coaching up towards senior executives.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden we have that holistic approach. Or we kind of start with the executives and kind of work our way into the other aspects of the business. So we call it we call it top down, bottom up, inside out approach. Just depends on where we start, depends on your specific needs.
Sure. Yeah. I love that. You're feeding the machine.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun because it's like, how many consultants are out there in the world they go into an organization, they assess, right? They do an audit and they go, oh, you should do this, this, and this. And then they're like, bye. Like, can you help us with the implementation of these recommendations? And most consultants don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, and so
I think it's a big difference between a consultant and a coach, and also that a consultant will usually tell you about the problem, whereas a coach will kind of guide you so that you can figure out the problem on your own, perhaps.
Right. Self-realization. Right.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so, and it's a little bit of both, right? We do a little bit, I mean, a lot of coaching, but also a lot of advising, especially with with the executives. And, you know, again, that holistic approach is what we find works versus like, also like when I was doing coaching on my own, I might be coaching one individual, you know, on a team in a larger organization. And it's like, what I'm hearing from them, I'm hearing all the issues within the organization from just this one person. You know, and pretty soon that leads to me coaching one other individual, you know, and I might have been brought in to help develop them as leaders, right? It's like, these are our high performers, we want to develop them, and you know, and all this. And, but you soon start to realize that there's these bigger picture issues that until that gets solved, I'm just brought in to react to the systems and environment that you've created. And until we also work on that, this is just going to continue to pop up as a symptom, but this isn't actually solving anything deep.
Sure.
So that's why, again, we've created this 360 approach to it.
I like it. What does a typical engagement with Lucidly look like?
So, you know, right now with the executives that we coach, there's kind of I joke around, it's like the 90-day boot camp. But basically it's teaching a language across the entire executive team so that they can all use and align on. You know, we have experience with EOS, which is basically like an operating system for small to mid-sized businesses to kind of level up. It's like, oh, we need more structure. So we've sort of transitioned that framework into kind of our Lucidly style and approach. And we use that with the executives or some version of that.
EOS is great. Yeah, we use EOS at Boxer.
Okay, cool. So again, you know, there's great platforms out there, and I still think it's important to kind of tweak things as you learn what works for you and what doesn't, and kind of, you know, modify as you go.
Sure.
So that, you know, 90 days, and then from there we decide what do we want to continue to do or not. We have other programs. Usually they run. We have a Catalyst Leadership program which runs 4 months. We have a Core Business Skills Academy set that they each run 4 months. So basically, we have enough content to run a year. And our newest are
you have really you have a lot of different service products, so you can kind of custom tailor to whatever client X needs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be real. Yeah, exactly. And we think what the programs that we've started out with are pretty fundamental. You know, like especially in the small to mid sector of like, we need to develop our leaders. Well, of course you do, because you've promoted your high performing individual contributors, and they suck. Like they suck at management. So they need some foundation, but you also don't have the resources to develop your own kind of leadership training program. So hire somebody else to do that with you. Yeah. Right. And then and then again, this kind of, how do we bring people in and to share a similar language of how we want to have effective one-on-one meetings, how do we give and receive feedback, what is accountability, and like how to take responsibility for, you know, creating your own sort of operating system as an individual that plugs into the bigger thing. So fundamental things, and obviously I love it, but I think so do our clients. It's like when you were just talking about with your wife, right? And how you both kind of, when you were envisioning where you get now, you had what you were working on, she had what she was working on, and you came together, combined it, right? So now, so there's kind of like bits of that, plus with my partner, her and I, you know, we invested in, you know, going to trainings, communication trainings, couples retreats to learn a language so that we can actually bring all of this stuff together and be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, people just operate to their defaults.
Mm-hmm.
And if everybody in the organization is operating to their default, you're just not going to be able to go as fast or as far as you otherwise would if you were all speaking the same language.
Yeah, totally. Are you familiar with the Peter principle?
No, tell me about it.
You're going to love this. So the Peter principle, and this is just, I'll probably butcher it, but basically what it says is that people get promoted to their level of incompetence. So if you think about it, you're really good at something, you're killing it here, right? You're going to get a promotion, and you're killing it here, and you're going to get a promotion. And then you're not so good here, so you're not going to get a promotion. You're just going to stay right there. So you get promoted up to your level of incompetence. That's kind of the idea. That's kind of what you're talking about, right? When, someone, they get that promotion, and maybe they're not a very good manager, so they need to learn that the language that you're talking about, the communication and all that.
Yeah. And sometimes, they can actually be coached and trained and learn and become an effective manager.
Sure.
But like, we just need to be more honest with ourselves. Is like, most high performers are terrible coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just not going to be like, all you have to do is look to professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
The best coaches were not the best athletes.
Sure.
So that if we understand that, we truly just like, all you got to do, like, success leaves clues. You got to look to where the best managers show up, and it's not typically in your highest performer. So organizations can consider that, should be considering that, versus just looking at like, oh man, this person's really crushing it in this one role, like they should probably be a manager. Like, actually, probably not. Like, we should just flip that on its head and really question that.
Yeah. And I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not saying that because someone, gets promoted that they're not going to be competent there. And
I get you.
And I absolutely believe, these skills are trainable, right? They're coachable. Assuming that the individual is coachable, those skills can be taught.
You said something that's really important though, Michael, right? Like, is that person coachable?
It's the individual.
Right. And often, I'm not going to say that. I would say that probably more often than not, I don't know what statistics are on this. I don't have stats on this, but
make something up.
High performers, 50-50. I don't know. Like, a lot of them are like, I don't need coaching. Like, I already crush it. Like, why would I need you to like new training and teach me how to do my job that I already do well? Like, of course I'm going to be able to help other people do it well. Like, well, maybe with that attitude, you're not. So being coachable is super important. I think, to put that in layman's terms, right? What does that mean? It's like you have a growth mindset. Like, you're open to new information. You're open to questioning yourself. You're open to being challenged, and reflection, and not assuming that you know everything already. Because if you think that, it's just going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for you.
Yeah. You have to be open to being wrong.
Oh my gosh. And we don't like to be wrong. Like,
no, we don't.
But like we can become, in many ways, I think, we can become comfortable with it. We can kind of retrain ourselves to actually lean into that, because it's actually what helps us perform better. Like, and so if you do have that performance, if you like to perform and you got that achiever part of you, it's like, actually, when you're challenged and when you learn more from being wrong than you do right. So we can train ourselves.
Yeah. And I think I like that you say it, the way that you worded it that way, because I think to some degree I've done that myself with my team. Because when I go to my team at Boxer with an idea or a thought about something that we're working on, I'll lay it all out, and then I'll say, I'm open to being wrong. If there's dissenting opinions are okay. In fact, they're encouraged, because we want dialogue, right? Dialogue is important. Dialogue brings out the best ideas. And so, just actually,
I like that.
Verbally saying I'm open to being wrong has been a huge help for me personally.
Let me ask you this. So because some leaders, managers can say, I'm open to being wrong, but then crickets. Like, nobody actually says anything. And so I'm curious, for you, is your team saying anything? And if they are, right? And if they are, like, what is it how is it that's been able to happen, right? Like, how have you been intentional about creating that space where people can be like, Michael, that shit sounds crazy,
I mean, it's a great question. I don't know that there's an easy answer to it. I think the broad answer is it's a culture that we've created at Boxer where it's, we're more or less flat hierarchy. So there's not really, we don't really have like managers and subordinates, kind of a flat hierarchy. I kind of make the decisions at the end, but people, we don't punish mistakes. We learn from mistakes. We've got an error log where we track mistakes, and
Good.
we track mistakes as a team. We talk about them once a week, every week. And we have, one of the columns, it's a spreadsheet. And one of the columns in there is, what did we learn from this? How are we going to prevent this error from this? How are we going to prevent this mistake from happening in the future? So it's just creating a culture of not punishing mistakes, of open communication, of dialogue, of encouraging, I want to say polite dissent, and
no flipping tables here.
Yeah. But you get the idea, right? Just encouraging that dialogue. Yeah.
There's a learning culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with the questions we ask, the humility, right? There's characteristics or quality of people that I imagine that you also kind of look for when you're hiring them.
Oh, for sure.
And even that you're modeling, and you probably don't even know, right? It's just like, we're all modeling something. And if we're leading by example, then we're probably going to attract more of those people. And other people are going to be like, oh yeah, well, if Micheal was challenging his own ideas, then I think it's okay if I challenge my own ideas and even other people's ideas, right? It's like, it just builds it into the DNA. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just, like I said, it's really about creating that right culture where I think the big part is that it's okay to be wrong. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But anyways, I want to circle back to you, Chris. What sort of things did Lucidly, what sort of things did you guys struggle with early on?
Man, the struggles are real.
They are.
I would say early on, there's a lot of struggles, and there's just still struggles. I think so the name of our company is Lucidly, right? The Lucidly is the ability to see clearly. Mm-hmm. Right? The ability to set aside one's preferences, patterns, prejudices to actually get to the truth of what's happening right here, right now in front of us. Mm-hmm. And being that's kind of a lot of that is our philosophy, I think that has impacted us in ways as we've built an organization early, right? It's like, we kind of built it, like we all came together, had similar visions about how we could help organizations and companies and whatnot, but how are we going to do that? So we actually started off first as creating a virtual coach. So we actually do have a platform that we deliver, and it's evolved, but it started off as like, how much of the human coach can we replace using technology? Now, I know that there are AI companies and all, there's all sorts of stuff that's happening in the tech world to do this, and has a boatload of funding, like just epic amounts of dollars going into it, which is super cool and interesting. We decided not to go that route, right? That's a choice. We just let's grow organically. We don't want to be beholden to shareholders. So, and the other idea was to then scale, because we wanted to scale coaching. Typically what happens is who receives most of the coaching? Executives, maybe senior directors, but everybody else, figure it out on your own.
Above.
Yeah. So it was like, let's solve that so we can empower more people. And when people are empowered, they're performing better. And when they're performing better, the businesses and organizations, they get better outcomes, results. Mm-hmm. And that was really what we set out to accomplish. And quickly we learned that, people still want a person. Mm-hmm. And I think this is one of our challenges now is kind of like letting go of some of the technology to evolve faster, to match the evolving needs and what we're learning with, in our academies and with our programs and in our coaching. Sure. So that's a challenge now. It's like we have this technology. Do we even need it? We could just ask that, right? Or are we attached to it? So it's certain things or not. And that's been a challenge. I also think that, we have so much wisdom in our team, right? And so many great ideas, and so many of those great ideas have kind of gone, we've launched them, but they've gone nowhere, but we've put a lot of time in it. And so when you have a small team trying to deliver things, and you're constantly iterating, it's hard to actually scale a business, and you need sales, you need marketing, you need these things. So I think it's finding that right, what is our kind of lead thing that we go to market with, and like figuring out how to position that. Like that's been the challenge, I think, this whole time.
Yeah. Nice. That tracks. Chris, why don't you talk about some of your guys' wins? What are some big wins that you guys have had with clients?
Yeah. So where do I start here? There's so we target small to mid-sized businesses, and we started like specializing in accounting firms and law firms, just engineering firms, architecture firms. So, and I never thought that I'd be working with accountants or lawyers. Like I just, but we, some of our team has experience, supporting those industries. So that's where we decided to start.
Sure.
We launched our academies within this firm. How many people do they have now? Probably got like 50 people at this firm. And we have been teaching them core business skills, again, like accountability, effective one-on-ones, how to solve problems together, making sure that you're not the problem, right? Like, because a lot of times we are, based on just what's going on up here.
Sure.
And so the programs we've delivered, again, they've empowered the individual to seek out their manager and like set their own goals, as opposed to kind of waiting for that top-down direction. Right. And their managers have been involved in the same program. So they're also they're expecting their people to come to them. And, through these group experiences where we basically meet every other week, in different cohorts across the organization on these same topics that they're going through. And so now you have managers that are feeling like, yo, we got to change some things around here. Like we're feeling it, right, from our people. Yeah. And now we're taking in this case, the partners, they hadn't figured their shit out. They just, not really a compelling vision, weren't really following through on the things that they said that they were going to do. And so now there was this opportunity to like help them level up, right? Because a lot of times, like, even people that are at that partnership level, they got to their kind of how we were talking before, because they're the high performer, like they just crushed it. Yep. Right. But being a business owner, like thinking strategically, casting that vision, right? Thinking about culture. These are new skill sets. This is a whole new thing, new language you got to learn.
Different way of thinking.
Right. So that's where we didn't even start with thinking that we're going to do executive coaching. We're like, no, let's not do that. Let's help the little guys and like, let's do the work there. But we evolved. And so because there were opportunities like this, now that, this has all been happening, now we're coaching the partners, right? Getting them aligned and man, like we're in it. Yeah. And this is just an example of where we're in it. And how I know this is a success is because, we have video, interviewing the managing partner and testimonials and whatnot, but you wouldn't know if you were just like looking at these accountants, because I'll tell you, I'll be in like a group session and you just like, people are just really quiet, like you're just real reserved, and not everybody's like an introvert on the spectrum, but it's until you ask them like, what's the value that you've gotten out of this? Oh man, well, and then they tell you, it's like, oh gosh, thank goodness, like you're actually getting some value out of this. Like I wouldn't have known because you're just, like stone face. So I mean, simple things like, I didn't realize that what we had been learning here, like within the business context or professional context, is actually now I've been able to carry those things into my personal life, and it's improved the relationship with my son. Yeah. Right. Or, I've spent so much time over the last 2 years as an accountant, like with my head down, and just like the tax season continuing to extend, where I didn't really think about my personal goals. and now I've like the fact that we like literally walk people through how to set goals and get feedback on goals and improve them, and it's like all of a sudden they translate that to their personal life.
So,
and that,
it's an ongoing joke on the Remarkable Coach podcast that every executive coach's dirty little secret is that they're a life coach.
yes, everybody's just a life coach
because it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same shit, man. It really is. You can call yourself whatever kind of coach you want to, but at the same, it all boils down to the same thing.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah, nice. Cool. What about some failures? Where have you guys...
Wait, one more.
Yeah.
One more thing. Like, so now having worked with this company for the last year and a half, we're still there, and we're probably going to roll out our next academy here in the next couple of months after tax season. Timing is everything. If you want adoption and engagement, but they've been able to increase their utilization up 4% over the last year. So meaning like they're more productive, like their people are more productive, right? So that the company ultimately makes more money, which is like more profitable, which is why we invest in our people.
Sure.
Oh, who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Nice. I love it.
So failures.
Where have you guys just really screwed up and learned from it? This is always an interesting question on the podcast. I always like to see what people come up with.
Yeah. No, there's a couple of things. I think, I'll start with, and I kind of already mentioned before, just, I think we over invested in the technology side of it. Rather than look into like similar solutions that could have been good enough for now, safe enough to try. And we would have been able to pivot faster. So there's that from a business learning perspective. The other thing is like,
is that kind of like just diving in head first instead of testing the waters or trying it out a little at a time, or?
Yeah, and like I think we wanted to think that what we were doing. Okay, how we initially started, there was nothing like it on the market.
Okay.
But then over time, as we started learning from what our clients are willing to pay for, and what like they kind of need, it's like it kind of evolved into something that already exists in the market. And so we're just kind of have this legacy thing that we've turned into this thing. Meaning, and I'll give you just a simple framework. It's like delivering video content and written content. Yep. Like in a program, like in a series, right? It's like a module, if you will. Like that already exists. Like, but we ended up building that because we kind of went that way. Because that's what people would buy. And it's like, okay, well, we learned that the hard, expensive way. So that's one. I think another is like this. So we've been flat, and what meaning everybody for the most part has a say in kind of where we're going, or at least gets to add their input. And
flat hierarchy, internal.
Yeah, flat hierarchy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that there's what's actually needed is a little bit more, and we've kind of discovered this. It's more of like the CEO just being like, "This is what we're going to do. This is great ideas." Right. And that's been a constant challenge, because I think there's so many of us that are ideators. Like one of my gifts is ideation. Like I can pull in and kind of assess what's happening in the market or in somebody's life that I'm coaching. And like, now all of a sudden there's like very clear opportunities that I see, but like I see 50 of them. So to keep even myself reined in is a challenge.
Sure.
But that's one of my gifts, is like to be able to see those possibilities. So then if you multiply that with a couple people on the team that really that's how they are, it's like
it gets messy real quick.
It gets real messy, and you're building a bunch of stuff and prototyping things that we might just be wasting our time. So that's, I think, been a challenge. That's been a challenge as well.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Interesting. What for new coaches, what kind of recommendations might you give to someone who is breaking into the scene, trying coaching out as a new career? Maybe they're seeing some success, and they want to build their practice. They want to build their business.
I think there's two paths. Of course, there's more than two paths, but those are outliers.
Sure.
So path one is you build a business. So you kind of have to decide, like, do you want to be a coach or do you want to be a business builder? Like, do you want to build a business?
Right.
Because not all coaches are going to be good at running a business. And not actually all business owners that are coaches are like, they're not necessarily good coaches. So, but, and some can do both, like, and do well. And they can, like, bring on people, partner with people like yourself, where it's like, you're owning the marketing piece, where I can just coach, right, and think about, some of the business stuff, but it's that kind of delegating thing. And then you have to get to a certain point before you can really do that. And it's like, what is that point? I don't really know. All I can do is share this, is that in my journey, I became a certified coach. I invested heavily in coaching skill. It was something I already had naturally. So it just kind of like took it to the next level for me. And about a year and a half in of doing it full time, I joined a coaching company. So I actually got recruited at a training. So that's something to pay attention to, is like, the trainings that you're going to, there were coaching companies there that were literally recruiting people out of there. And so and then I did that for 2.5 years. Basically, for the most part, they would give me clients. And so I didn't really have to worry about kind of going out there and finding them and posting on, doing all the stuff that coaches need to try to do to kind of attract clients to them.
Totally.
So that's the path that I did, and here I am now. And in many ways, I'm kind of personally starting from scratch, because I really am going back to one-on-one work with people and helping us grow Lucidly from a marketing perspective and voice and thought leadership.
For sure.
And there are other people on our team that are kind of running and facilitating our programs. But like, it's no joke to be a solopreneur. I mean, there's a lot that you have to consider. So join a coaching company, and there's nothing like in just, you have to coach. So even if you're just, I think it's something like, most coaches make less than, you probably know this better than me, like $30,000 a year. They make less than that. It's maybe even like average coach makes like $20,000 a year.
97% of statistics are made up on the spot, Chris.
You know all about the wind. It blows all sorts of which ways. So yeah, you need to coach. You need to develop the craft of coaching if you want to be a good coach. So coach people for free, because what you'll find is that, like, people, once they experience you coaching, is like, whoa, I hadn't thought about that. Or like, I didn't realize that I could do that, or I was getting in my own way this way. Like, that was incredibly valuable. You're like, awesome. No pressure. Well, if you want more of this, this is what I do. And it's just, that could be that simple. And so I think, and another thing for me that I guess offer here in my own direct experience is, I love people. So I just network and meet people. And what's happened is, you have to live your truth. You have to live the life that you believe it's true to you, that's core to you, right? True. Whether that you create the life, if you're helping people be a leadership coach, like, you have to be a leader. Like, you have to model behaviors, because people are going to be like, I want to lead like Chris, or I want to lead like Micheal. And so if I see him in the world doing the thing and living the way that is appealing to me, now I've had friends, people from different, when I was in Portland, from when I was in the Bay Area, reach out because they see me living a life that's like, they want to be living their own version of that. And it's like, awesome, cool. Yeah. But that's just because you have to be out there in the world, like, building relationships and living for that to happen, for people to see you and experience you.
Yeah, I want to double down on that. I think that's super important. The word that comes to my mind is authenticity, and just spending some time, figuring out who you truly are and what you really want to be doing, and not trying to, kind of casting off any externally imposed ideas of what you should be doing. You know, you grow up, maybe your parents want you to be a doctor or some shit like that, whatever it is, you know, figuring out who you are and understanding that and just being true to yourself, being authentic. The rest is that alone, I think that's like the lead domino, right? That makes everything else a lot easier.
100%, man. And Michael, that's what I spend a lot of my work with clients, is to like really just like, what parts are you, what parts are society, programming, or what you learned at school or friends, family.
It's an onion. You got to peel that shit back. Like there's layers and layers and layers of crap. I have done personally so much coaching work with different coaches and coaching groups, peeling back my crap and casting it off. I'm like, nope, yep. I'm a mountain man.
Yeah, that's good.
And, you know, just like figuring out who I was. Yeah, well.
No, you're totally right, man. It's peeling back those layers. You know, one thing that came to mind as you're saying that is, so when I first started coaching, people can take for this for what they will. You know, I was very performance action oriented, and I still am, but I learned through coaching and being coached that a lot of that comes from my own like a core wound around like not being good enough, right? Not being good enough in my dad's eyes, who was my coach for everything, and always about, how do we improve this? How do we improve that? And so a lot of my drive to actually be good in the world was coming from that. Like, I don't feel good about myself, and I don't feel like I am enough. And so that was a doozy to realize, to connect the dots there. But what I learned with early on in coaching is like, it's for most people, it's not as simple as writing their goals down and just like making it happen. If it were that simple, more people would accomplish their dreams. Like if it were that simple, it would happen. Now, I'll tell you what I learned is what I've learned, and is that it's the unconscious parts of ourselves, what's going on underneath the surface, the part of us that we don't like, those deeper motivations, those deeper level societal programs that we're running. You know, how our parents treated us, how we saw them treat each other and communicate to each other. It's all teaching us basically our operating system. And it's just stored wherever it's stored, because I don't know where it's stored around us. But until actually we upgrade that software, we'll just keep perpetuating the same patterns. We'll just keep perpetuating. So when you showed me the secret, the calendar, you know, and that philosophy, it's like.
So you guys know what I'm talking about here. I got the secret calendar for 2022 on my desk.
Yeah, well, how about this? If you were to just describe that, what the secret is, how would you describe it?
I mean, the quick and easy version of it, I think, is law of attraction.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the quick and dirty version. Yeah.
Yeah. You attract that which you are and what you feel, what you think about.
Yeah.
And so until you understand at your core, that authentic part of you, right, and you get through the muck and you let go of the muck, then you're going to attract whatever has been programmed.
Sure.
So a lot of the techniques that I would encourage is for any coach is to learn techniques that allow you to connect with somebody's unconscious mind, because if that's where all behavior change like happens, like that's where it happens. And you can actually help people and help clients to sort of, again, upgrade their unconscious programming and shift. That way they begin to then attract the people, the situations, the experiences in their life that now reflect that more clear operating system.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're just running around with our baggage, just throwing it everywhere, and it's getting projected onto each other, and it's just it's messy. And this is important to me, and I'm super passionate about it, because if we, you know, want to create a better world or live into the better world that all of us know is possible, right? Without war, I mean, without famine, without, I mean, environmental degradation, I mean, all these things, these are all merely reflections of what's going on in our collective programming, our collective internal stuff. And so I kind of chuckle. It's kind of this weird, there's so many of us are trying to solve the problem out there. There's a bajillion nonprofits that are trying to solve things that are out there. Great. Businesses now, like social impact businesses, are trying to solve those big problems. However, those problems actually I don't know that any of them have actually gone away. Like, and like they're still there. So then it's like, well, what the heck? Like, why? Like, we're just doing these things so we can feel good about how we're spending our time and energy, because we're trying to solve the problems. And so I'm not saying that the doing out there needs to stop, but the doing inside also needs to happen. Right? The resolving inner conflict, the healing our traumatic experiences, and understanding how they show up in our lives. And the inner game, to me, is how we actually create that better world. And if you've experienced coaching and we've had those shifts internally, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you as a coach can help somebody address that stuff, it's only a matter of time before the out there begins to reflect back the inner work that we've all collectively done. So this, to me, is probably some of the most profound work that we can actually do to change the world. It's inside. It's inner game.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. I mean, it all starts in there, right? I mean, that's everything. Everything starts with the individual, the intention behind it. And I don't know. Yeah. It's difficult work though. It's nebulous. So it's not easy to define.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. Yeah. It's just harder to define, and it's harder to do because it's not, I don't know. Yeah. With external problems, you can see a symptom, you can reverse engineer it and figure out the problem and be like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And you can just report it. It's with the inner work, it's not quite that easy, because sometimes it takes, 4 years of journaling in a diary before you get to one thing.
Yeah. Well, here it is more nebulous, and it, generally speaking, is uncomfortable because it's kind of uncharted territory. It's like going deep sea diving in like very murky water.
For sure.
Right. Where you like barely see in front of your face. But when I'm working with clients, it's like, if you can show people how their external world is already mirroring currently what's going on internally, they can begin to see how they've created it. And once you can make that connection, now, like, oh, just having that awareness can, like, then you start focusing more on what it is that you want rather than focusing on what you don't want, right? You start visualizing it, right? You start understanding what was behind that thing in the first place, whether it was some sort of pain or some suffering that I'm experiencing, or anger. I mean, I could talk all day about this stuff, but it's like, I've never met anybody that's in clients that have gone down this path. We've gone down this path together that's regretted it. Like nobody's regretted it, because they very quickly start to see is if I make those shifts internally, I actually don't have to sometimes do stuff. Stuff just comes to me. It's crazy. Some stuff that starts showing up, and then you meet week after week, and then people reflect on it and you go, okay, well, how's that? They're like, oh, nothing really happened this week. And you start asking them questions, and they're like, wait, actually I had this conversation and this opportunity came. I'm like, see, this is actually the work. You don't have to try as hard as you think you do oftentimes.
Got to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Sweet. Chris, you guys have a life work recalibration program that you would like to offer our viewers and listeners. Is that right?
Yeah. This is my jam. So, right. If you're in a place where you're feeling kind of unhappy, or like, what's next? Or like, there's some part of you that feels like there's more, or like you're feeling stuck or something. That's what Chris Herndon can help you with. And that's what this life recalibration coaching program is about. And it's basically 3 months long, where we meet over a period of, that time in 9 sessions. And you begin to get to that root, authentic you, resolve any baggage or that cloudy unconscious crap that we're all carrying, and begin to point in the direction that you truly want in your heart of hearts. And then you just start watching it happen. Like it's kind of crazy. And yeah, you got to take action. You got to do work. There's homework, because you got to do that inner work. That's that.
Where can people go to find out more about that?
I think the best place is to just reach out to me directly. So Chris Herndon at lucidly.org. So ChrisHerndon at LUCIDLY.org. That's the best place to go. Let's just have a conversation.
Awesome. We will add that URL to the show notes. Chris, I suspect people can also find you on LinkedIn.
Yep. LinkedIn, and good place.
Chris, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we haven't touched upon yet?
Oh man, I feel like we could talk all day about community and outdoor off-grid living and but that's another conversation for another time.
That's great. That's great for the listeners and viewers out there. Yeah, we have little chats before I start hitting record, and Chris and I kind of jammed out on off-grid living for a hot minute before I hit record. It was pretty good. Yeah. Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time. This has been a great chat.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. Thanks, Michael.
Awesome. And thank you to our viewers and listeners. We'll catch y'all next time. Cheers.